Endurance runs. Endurance runs are the backbone of an endurance runner's training. So, what are they? How do we do them? And why do we do them? So, endurance runs are done at an intensity that's quite easy. So, it's not so easy that you're just like walking and you can talk really comfortably, but it's not so fast that if you were running and someone could tell you like you're really quite out of breath, not able to finish full sentences, then that's too fast. Zone 2, which is where we do our endurance runs, is what you might call a conversational pace. So this is the kind of pace that you can do quite comfortably and hold a conversation, but the person you're talking to knows that you're running. The intensity is very easy, it's very sustainable, as long as you have the mechanical resilience and stress tolerance to running, because you are accustomed to running, you're not brand new to it, it should feel almost too easy. Now, in terms of our intensity spectrum, zone 2 for us, or at that endurance pace, is below the first lactate threshold. So this isn't the second lactate threshold, the more famous lactate threshold. So the second lactate threshold is where the lactate in the blood starts to spike. The first lactate threshold is where the blood lactate level starts to rise a little bit. And that we call LT1. And just below that, we have zone 2, or the aerobic base building zone. So if I were to walk you through how to understand this, if you were going to the lab for a lactate threshold test and you were walking on the treadmill at the start and they were pricking your finger every set interval, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, I'm not sure, and they measured your blood lactate level, it wouldn't be rising very much because it's a comfortable intensity when you're walking. If you were to speed up a little bit, so now you're in zone 2, the blood lactate level will be rising a little bit, but it's not really increasing very much. It's staying quite low. Okay, once you go a little bit harder, so once you increase the speed to the point where you're starting to struggle to hold your breath a little bit, struggle to talk in full sentences, the blood lactate level will start to rise more quickly. And then if you were to speed it up a bit more, you'll start to reach a place where you really can't talk comfortably. And if they were to measure your blood lactate level, they'll notice that it's rising exponentially. The volume of lactate in the blood is increasing rapidly. That's your second lactate threshold, the inflection point where it goes up. It's the intensity where it starts to rise very quickly. The first lactate threshold is more when it starts to rise slowly. And below that first lactate threshold, where the lactate level is pretty consistent, it's rising but not very much, that's zone 2. That's the endurance run zone. That's the intensity where we want to target for these endurance runs at that conversational or easy pace. Now, why do we want to do that? Why do we want to go and run at this really easy pace? We don't tend to race at that easy pace unless you're doing ultra distance races. Even if you were doing a marathon, you wouldn't run that easy. You would run faster than that, usually in zone 3 intensity. So why bother training in zone 2? Why go that slow if that's not how fast you're going to race? And the answer is because you could do a lot of it with less injury risk, and you'll target the oxidative system. So our oxidative system, if we have 3 energy systems, right? Oxidative is where we're generating energy using oxygen, and we can generate a lot of our energy that way, but it's slow. So we have to keep the intensity low, but that allows us to produce a lot of energy, meaning we can go slow for a very long time. If we go too fast, we'll use more of our glycolytic system, right? Where we're going to be burning energy more quickly, and we're going to be able to use less oxygen. So we'll produce energy, but just not as fast. And if we go really fast into the sort of sprinting territory, then we're going to tap into our phosphagen system of energy generation, which is really like a firecracker. It's going to be very quick. It's going to produce energy, but it's all going to come out very quickly within 10 to 20 seconds. Now, as runners, we want to target these different energy systems. We want them all to get better. But the one we really want to get better if we are an endurance runner is our oxidative system, right? This is sometimes referred to as our aerobic base. You'll hear runners talk about base building. This is what we're doing. We're running deliberately slow below that first lactate threshold. So where the lactate in the blood is staying very low, we're running nice and easy. And that's going to primarily generate energy via our oxidative system. That means that there's going to be oxygen there to use to produce that energy. And when we do that, we get very good at burning fat as a fuel. which is good because that's our slow burn, right? That's going to keep us going for a long time. So if we develop that oxidative system so it's more efficient and we can produce more energy at that low intensity, we'll have a really solid aerobic base to then build on higher intensity work. So we want this to form really the base of the pyramid of our training, where we're doing a lot of training in our oxidative system territory, right? In that easy run territory. And then some of our training at faster intensities, in the middle intensity, and then a little bit of our training at the top intensity. So if we were to think of a pyramid, in terms of our training, we want to have, the base of the pyramid be targeting the oxidative system. The middle of the pyramid is going to target the glycolytic system, and the top of the pyramid is going to target the phosphagen system. So really what we have there is a visual representation of, okay, we want a lot of time in our training spent in easy territory. We want to be going very slowly and developing our oxidative system or our aerobic base. And then we want some of our time at that, race pace and faster threshold work kind of intensity, and then a little bit of time, sprinting and going at all out effort. So then the question is how? Okay, so generally speaking, conventional wisdom at this point of time is for endurance runners, hitting 80% of your training in zone 2 or below, right, is a good place to go, because then you're really going to focus on developing that oxidative system. You're going to build out that aerobic base so you can build on it when it comes closer to race time. So we just want to spend, if we're doing 5 runs a week, 4 of them are in zone 2, right? So we're doing a lot of time in zone 2. And we'll probably have one long run, which we'll talk about in a different episode. But our endurance runs, right, our steady runs, they're sometimes called, our zone 2 runs, that's setting the base of that endurance training. We want that to focus on runs that are about, 30 minutes at the low end and like an hour and a half at the top end. So it's not quite a long run. It's kind of semi-long, right? But it's not really a long run, but it's not like short either. And we want them to be steady state usually. That's going to allow our heart rate to get very much into zone 2 and just stay there. And then we might stay there for half an hour, for 45 minutes, for 60 minutes, sometimes up to 90 minutes. And we're going to do a few of those a week. And depending on the training time of year is going to depend how much, right? And our specific goals. But the structure of the workouts is always the same. You warm up a bit, then you just get into zone 2. You can use heart rate or pace. It doesn't matter. And then you just hold in zone 2 for the duration of the run, whether it's 30, 60, 90 minutes, whatever it is. And really these endurance runs, like I said, they are kind of the backbone. They're the foundation of our training. So they are pretty straightforward. Get in zone 2, stay in zone 2 for half an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Do it a few times a week. That's going to help you develop your aerobic base. It's not particularly difficult. Probably the most difficult part about it is number one, making sure that your zones are calibrated correctly. So making sure that you are actually in zone 2 and you're not using a cookie cutter formula or something like that to work out what your zone 2 is. And the other thing is just being consistent. So doing them throughout the week, throughout the year, throughout your life as a runner. These are personally probably my favorite workout. I mean, they're pretty close. I really like fart-like workouts as well, where you have that varied intensity without like being too much. But, zone 2 runs, they are, just get used to them. Make sure you're doing them correctly. And, they form the backbone of your training.